4 years? That's how long I was with Daniel. 4 years of holidays together. 4 years of meeting each other's families. 4 years of building what I genuinely believed was a life. The night it ended, I was wearing a blue dress I had bought specifically for the occasion. We had reservations at the restaurant where he had asked me to be his girlfriend. It was our anniversary. I found out at the table. Not because he told me. Not because she told me. Because of a notification that appeared on his phone when he went to the bathroom and left it face up on the table. I read it. I put the phone back exactly where it was. I straightened my dress. And I waited for him to come back. When he sat down, I smiled. We finished dinner. I paid the bill, the whole thing. We walked to the car. I told him I was tired and asked him to drive me home. He did. I kissed him goodnight, walked inside, locked the door, and began the most deliberate 6 weeks of my life. Stay with me, because what happened to both of them was not something I planned. It was something I simply allowed. Let me tell you about Daniel and about Maya, because she matters just as much to this story. Daniel and I met at 24. He was charming in the way that certain people are charming, effortlessly, almost accidentally. He remembered small details. He made you feel seen. He was the kind of person who could walk into a room and leave everyone with the impression that he had really listened to them. I fell for it completely. Most people did. What I didn't understand then, and what took me 4 years to learn, was that the same quality that made him magnetic also made him incapable of real intimacy. For Daniel, connection was a performance, not malicious, not calculated, just shallow. He reflected back what people wanted to see and mistook their response for love. Maya was my best friend of 7 years. We had met in college. She was the person I called when things went wrong. The person who sat with me in hospital waiting rooms. The person who knew every version of me, the ugly ones included. Or so I thought. Looking back, there were patterns I didn't want to see. Maya had a habit of wanting what other people had, not out of malice. I don't think she was malicious. Out of something deeper and more complicated than that. A restlessness, an inability to be satisfied with her own lane. She had dated a friend's ex twice. She had applied for a job at a company I was interviewing at without mentioning it. Small things, things I rationalized. The two of them had met at my birthday dinner 2 years earlier. I remember thinking at the time that they were getting along well. I remember feeling pleased about it. I was an idiot. The message on his phone was not ambiguous. I won't repeat it word for word. But it was the kind of message that leaves no room for interpretation. The kind that answers questions you didn't know you were asking. There was also a photo. I looked at it for approximately 4 seconds, put the phone back, took a sip of water, and decided, in that moment, with complete clarity, that I was not going to react. Not because I wasn't devastated, I was. The kind of devastated that makes the room tilt slightly. The kind where you become very aware of your own breathing. But something else happened alongside the devastation, a coldness, a sudden, absolute clarity about who these two people were. And with that clarity came a question. What is the smartest thing I can do right now? Not the most satisfying thing, not the most dramatic thing, the smartest thing. The answer was nothing, at least not yet. When Daniel came back from the bathroom, I was looking at the menu dessert page. I looked up and smiled. "Should we get something sweet?" I said. He said sure. We ordered dessert. I paid the bill. I kissed him goodnight, and I went home and cried for approximately 2 hours. Then I stopped. And I started thinking. Here is what I knew walking into those 6 weeks. Daniel and I shared a lease. We had 8 months left on the apartment. His name was on the account for our shared streaming services and utilities. We had a trip planned for the following month. Flights already booked, non-refundable. Maya was the co-organizer of my friend group. She was the person who planned the brunches, the group chats, the birthday dinners. She was, in many ways, the social infrastructure of my life for 7 years. If I exploded, which is what every cell in my body wanted to do, I would lose the apartment in chaos. I would lose the trip money. I would be the one who disrupted the friend group. I would hand both of them a narrative where I was the unstable one. So I didn't explode. Instead, I did 5 things over 6 weeks. 1. I found a new apartment. I viewed it on a Tuesday afternoon when Daniel thought I was at yoga. I signed the lease that Friday. Moving date, 6 weeks out. 2. I quietly separated my finances. New bank account. Direct deposit redirected. Removed him from anything I could remove him from. 3. I told 3 people I trusted completely, not for gossip, for witnesses. People who could confirm later the timeline of what I knew and when. 4. I said nothing to Maya. I responded to her messages normally. I showed up to the brunch she organized. I watched her interact with me and felt something I can only describe as clinical detachment. She had no idea I knew. I kept it that way. 5, I documented, screenshots, dates, a private notes document on my personal phone, not for revenge, for clarity, for my own sanity. So that later, when the grief tried to rewrite history, I would have proof of what was real. At the end of week 4, Daniel noticed I was different. He asked if everything was okay. I said yes. I've just been tired. He said okay. He didn't push further. That told me everything I needed to know about how much attention he had actually been paying. Moving day was a Saturday. Daniel was at his brother's place for the weekend. He didn't know it was moving day because I hadn't told him. I had hired movers. Everything that was mine was gone in 3 hours. I left his things exactly as they were. I left the shared furniture. He could deal with it. I left a note on the kitchen counter. The note said, "I know about you and Maya. I've known for 6 weeks. I didn't say anything because I needed time to make sure I was okay first. I am okay now. Don't call me. I hope the apartment works out for you." That was it. No accusations, no anger, no scenes, just facts and a boundary. I drove to my new apartment, unpacked my boxes, made my bed, ordered food, and watched a movie alone for the first time in 4 years. It felt, surprisingly, like relief. I want to be careful about how I tell this part, because I didn't engineer what happened to Daniel and Maya. I didn't make calls. I didn't tell people. I didn't intervene. I just stepped out of the way and let the truth operate on its own timeline. Here is what I learned through mutual friends over the following months. Daniel and Maya had been seeing each other for 7 months before I found out. When I left, they moved in together almost immediately. Within 2 months, the cracks showed. The qualities that had made Daniel attractive to Maya were the same qualities that had frustrated me. His charm was surface level. His intimacy was performed. He had done to her, within their relationship, a version of what he had done in ours, just in smaller, faster cycles. She, meanwhile, was exactly as restless with him as she had been with everything else in her life. By month 4, they were fighting constantly. By month 6, they had broken up. The apartment, which was in Daniel's name, he couldn't afford a loan. He had to move back to his parents' house at 29. Maya lost most of the friend group. Not because I said anything, because when the relationship between her and Daniel became public, people connected the dots themselves. Nobody had to be told. Social trust, once broken, doesn't require an announcement. I heard she tried to reach out to me 6 months later, a long message, an apology. I read it. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. I just had nothing left to say. I've thought a lot about why I responded the way I did, with patience instead of confrontation. Part of it was self-protection. Part of it was practicality. But the bigger part was something I've come to believe deeply. When someone shows you who they are, the most powerful response is not to fight it. It's to believe it and act accordingly. Daniel showed me who he was at that restaurant. Maya had been showing me who she was for years. I just hadn't wanted to see it. The 6 weeks I spent preparing my exit weren't about revenge. They were about making sure that when I left with everything that was mine intact. My finances, my dignity, my clarity. What happened to them after was not my victory. It was just the natural consequence of two people who had been performing versions of themselves, finally being alone together with no audience. The performance doesn't hold up without someone to perform for. If you're in a situation right now where someone is performing for you, where something feels slightly off, where the warmth seems just a little too calculated, trust that feeling. You don't have to explode. You don't have to confront. You just have to start paying very close attention. And then, when you're ready, make your move quietly. I am genuinely happy now. Not in a performative way, not in a I showed them way, just quietly, solidly happy. I have an apartment that is entirely mine. I have friendships that are entirely real. And I have a much clearer understanding of what I will and won't accept. That clarity was worth every minute of those 6 weeks. If this story resonated with you, if you've been in a situation where someone you trusted turned out to be someone completely different, drop a comment below. I read every single one. Subscribe for a new story every day, and remember, just wait.